Hello, and welcome to Tales of an Industrious Rogue. First, the Preamble. If you can lend me an ear or two, I would like to tell you the tale of an Industrious Rogue. Early in the campaign, before the events here described had time to happen, the party stumbled on a trapped room inside a dungeon, which contained a rift into the elemental plane of salt. The idea was to have the characters face a small salt elemental, and then get on with the dungeon. After killing it, one of the players, Hassan, asked me about the price of salt, which after an appraise roll, I told him could fetch about 1 gold per pound. So then he spends a while filling every possible container he had, including his boots, with salt from the elemental rift. And then the session continued as planned through the dungeon. Once back in the city, where we are playing in Katapesh, he managed to get a handsome sum of money for the salt. About half a year of campaign later, when most of the party levels up to 7, the monk sorcerer was stuck at level 6 after missing a couple sessions. Hassan asked me about taking the leadership feat and wants to discuss the possibility of gathering some followers. His charisma score was 20 at the time, and other things qualified him for a good amount of followers. So we get on it during the pizza break. He had notes prepared from before. Most of what he asks sounds reasonable. I'm often a harsh DM, but very flexible when the players are being creative. So I let him go along with it. And so long as he starts his criminal gang, or at least I thought that was his goal. Instead, after the pizza break, the player announces his character is going to leave Katapesh for a couple of weeks. We are on a between adventures part of the campaign, so I give the player the opportunity to conduct some medium-term tasks if they all agreed on moving the time frame a few weeks into the future. Chapter 1. A Humble Beginning. The idea was to have them craft stuff, meet up with their families, get the chance to set up a proper base of operations in the city, etc. Also, one of the characters was getting married to an important NPC who later got kidnapped by denizens of Lane, but that is for a future story. But before he does, he and his followers go on a pretty odd shopping spree, buying large amounts of wood, iron, smithing material, shovels, carts, weights, etc. I begin suspecting the kind of thing he was after. I've been playing with these guys for about 15 years, so I know when they are up to something, but I wasn't sure until he had his character visit a local moneylender. He arrives at the Honest Abdul's House of Wealth Facilitation. The party had conducted some business with Honest Abdul in the past when they helped him rig a gladiatorial fight and score some big earnings. So he charged them less abuse of interest, and his stealing margins were lower, and starts working on a deal to secure a warehouse in the port district and shipping permits. He knew Abdul had some contacts there from a previous mission they were involved with, for which he requests a rather substantial loan, which would be promptly paid back with an offer for a business joint venture. Abdul was not quite convinced, so the rogue had to steal some stuff from a temple of Densa to serve as collateral. The same temple which had served the party as a safe house for most of the initial part of the campaign. He swore he would pay it back with donations one day. So he and his followers set up to travel. Keep in mind that while now it seems rather obvious what he had in mind, it had been about 8 months of real time and many sessions between that moment and the time they originally found the elemental rift. However, when Hassan asks Valnar, who among his many oddities is a cartographer, both in real life and in character, and kept maps of everything, for the map of that abandoned Osiran temple we stumbled upon while we were chasing that Lamia that sliced off Vorgar's left hand, or Vorgok, Vorgok is the party's barbarian and resident killing machine. He actually killed that Lamia by taking his sliced hand, putting it inside a spiked glove, and shoving it through the Lamia's throat until it died of suffocation, then cooked the Lamia. He got his hand some sessions later, after striking a deal with a necromancer. Valnar and Rakim got the hand from the local necropolis, and the necromancer got it installed. Sometimes it tries to choke him, other times it slaps the woman in the butt, but Vorgok says, "Hand holds sword, sword kills people." Vorgok pleased with arrangement. I recalled his keen interest for salt. Hassan and his followers took about 4 days to arrive at their destination, and he quickly starts setting up quite an impressive layout of the stuff he wanted done. He clearly put a lot of thought into it, and it was actually quite reasonable, so I allowed it to go through, with a few accidents here and there, of course. I am a DM after all. After making sure the operation in the surface was up and running, set plans for building living quarters for the overseers, started digging a pit where the slaves he would rather get would be locked, sent off a mage initiate with a dowsing rod to find some water, organized a patrol guard against the Knoll tribes that inhabit the region, among other things, of course. He went into the dungeon with his strongest followers. While they did encounter some creatures, mostly gnolls who had taken residence in the now open temple ruins, they made it easily to the room where the rift, where they had to fight another salt para-elemental. But they finished it and got to work on securing the site so the workers could come in and start digging out the dungeon. Let's move forward in time, 3 weeks in game, when the rest of the party, now done with their own business, which among other things resulted in the priest becoming permanently infertile and bald for manipulating something that could best be described as solid doom farts. At least that's how the party's warrior/minstrel, "Oh God, why does he keep singing?" described it when they first found them, made their way to find their friend Hassan. The salt extracting operation was now in full swing. The first caravan of salt had been sent to Katapesh a week ago, and the sacks were quickly sold among various merchants. Abdul had spoken with Hassan and felt the operation was potentially profitable, and agreed to gather some investors, so money started pouring in. The next sessions were dedicated mostly to planning it out. Since most of the money the rogue originally used to buy the materials he started with was borrowed from the party, and because they were the only ones he trusted, he had them join him, and our campaign took a momentary halt from the main story arc, which involved a bunch of doomsday factions fighting each other over how the world had to end, and the characters accidentally caught carrying the object central to said dispute, and everyone trying to have them working for their cause, to focus on the salt. During those sessions, the operation grew from the initial prospecting an odd caravan to a much bigger thing, which employs around 100 people, half of which are actually slaves. I had the rogue suffer an XP penalty due to letting 25 of them die after ordering them to, quote, "pile up over that loose elemental. Don't let the merchandise escape, you gnats," unquote. He's supposed to be chaotic neutral, but I thought that was borderline evil. Fun indeed, but evil nonetheless. As well as guards, caravans, traders, a sea ship between Katapesh and Absalon, called the Really Salty Sailor, go figure, hired scribes in each city that handle all the paperwork and port issues, and a host of minor individuals. And we shall continue this story in Chapter 2.